They thought your silence meant weakness, but silence was the trap. Watch how the ones who tried to expose you end up exposing themselves. Every conflict begins with noise, the raised voice, the fast heartbeat, the rush to be understood. People argue to win, not to learn, and they mistake reaction for strength. But the truth is, noise only benefits the one who has lost control. The moment you go quiet, the game changes. Silence looks small on the surface, but inside it is power gathering itself. Stillness is not what happens when you give up. It is what happens when you rise above the urge to prove something. It is the invisible shift from emotion to awareness, from fighting for control to already owning it. When you choose silence, you take back the steering wheel. You stop chasing approval or validation. You stop letting someone else decide how you feel. The world has trained people to speak too quickly, to fill every gap, to defend every inch. But the ones who lead, who command, who create mystery know the secret. Stillness speaks louder than sound. It makes people lean in. It makes them question. It makes them reveal. When you say nothing, the other person feels the weight of their own words. They hear themselves more clearly, and what they hear often unsettles them, because silence reflects truth, and truth is rarely comfortable. In moments of tension, the average person panics. They rush to explain, to justify, to prove they are right. But explanation is a confession. It says, "I need you to see my side." It gives away power. Stillness, on the other hand, says, "I see everything and I choose not to move." It makes people wonder what you know, what you think, and what you might do next. That uncertainty is dominance disguised as calm. You no longer fight to control the situation because you already control yourself. And the one who controls himself always controls the room. Silence also reveals character. Watch how people react when you don't respond. The secure will mirror your calm. The insecure will expose their chaos. They will talk faster, repeat themselves, look for your reaction like oxygen. The longer you stay still, the more they crumble under the weight of their own insecurity. You didn't attack them, yet they start defending themselves against nothing. That's the quiet power of stillness. It forces everyone else to face their own reflection. The secret is that silence is not absence, it's presence. It doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means what you could say is too powerful to waste. It shows that your emotions serve you, not the other way around. The calm person in the storm always becomes the center of it, because chaos needs something stable to orbit around. And when that stability is you, you no longer need to fight for respect. People give it to you instinctively. Stillness doesn't mean you win by doing nothing. It means you win by not doing what they expect. You let the noise tire itself out. You let the storm run in circles, and when the dust settles, you are still standing untouched. That is the hidden power of silence, not retreat, but control, not surrender, but command. When you stop responding, something strange happens. People begin to hear themselves. Without your reaction to guide them, without your words to fight against, their own emotions bounce back at them like sound in an empty room. Your silence becomes a mirror, showing them what they tried to hide from you and from themselves. Most people speak to control how they are seen. They argue to prove they are right. They exaggerate to feel important. They criticize to cover their fear. But when you give them nothing to push against, their mask slips. The truth starts to show. Silence removes the distraction of defense. When you do not interrupt, when you do not explain, when you simply let their words sit in the air, they begin to feel the weight of what they said. You will notice the small changes first. The nervous laugh, the forced shrug, the quick glance away. Then it grows. They start to overtalk, to justify, to fill the quiet. Because silence makes them uncomfortable. It reminds them that they are not in control of the moment anymore. Their own energy has nowhere to go but back to them. And that reflection is what breaks most people. Not your response, but their own awareness of how they sound. The insecure cannot survive without reaction. They feed on it. They need you to argue so they can feel valid, to resist so they can feel strong. When you stay calm, you starve that need. They don't know what to do with your stillness, so they project harder, louder, more desperately. They will accuse, provoke, twist words, hoping to get a spark. But every failed attempt exposes them more. Because the one who keeps talking after silence enters the room always looks weaker. It shows the world their insecurity, their need to be heard, their fear of being invisible. In relationships, silence can be the most honest answer. When someone blames you unfairly, when they push you to react and you choose not to, it forces them to sit with their own emotion. They may grow frustrated, but that frustration isn't proof of your guilt. It is proof of their dependence on control. They wanted to feel superior, and your calm denied them that satisfaction. Silence is not cruel, it is truth. It says, I don't need to defend what I know. It says, I will not play your game. The mirror effect of silence also reveals the balance of power. The one who speaks most in tension is usually the one losing control. The one who can wait, who can hold the pause, already owns the frame. People sense this without understanding it. They start to question themselves, their tone, their motives. They wonder why you are so calm, what you might be thinking, whether they went too far. And in that wondering, they hand you authority without you asking for it. Silence doesn't expose you. It exposes them. It shows who needs attention, who fears judgment, who hides behind words. And as they reveal more, you have to do less. The noise becomes their confession. The quiet becomes your power. Because in every mirror, the truth always belongs to the one who stands still long enough to let it appear. Insecurity hates silence because silence takes away its favorite tool, attention. It feeds on reactions, on proof that it still has power over you. When someone insecure speaks, they are not really trying to communicate. They are trying to measure how much control they have left. They look for signs in your tone, your eyes, your body language. The moment you stop giving those signs, the foundation of their power begins to shake. They don't know how to exist without an audience. Their confidence is not built from within. It is borrowed from whoever reacts to them. When you take that away, they panic, and panic always reveals truth. When you stay silent, you are not avoiding confrontation. You are creating a space that forces people to fill it with their real selves. Watch what happens when you no longer respond to their provocations. They start to talk more, trying to explain what they really meant, trying to fix what was never broken. Every sentence becomes a confession. They will say things they didn't plan to, reveal emotions they wanted to hide, and show fears they swore they didn't have. You didn't expose them. They exposed themselves because insecurity cannot survive in still air. It needs movement. It needs noise. It needs reassurance that it matters. This is the psychology of exposure. The insecure reveal themselves through excess. The calm reveal nothing because they have nothing to prove. The insecure cannot stop speaking because silence feels like judgment to them. They rush to explain, to justify, to soften what they said. They think they are protecting themselves, but all they are doing is digging deeper into the hole. The more they try to control perception, the more their real emotion leaks out. And the stronger your silence stays, the more visible their struggle becomes. In relationships, this plays out in quiet but powerful ways. Someone accuses you, not because they are certain you are wrong, but because they need to see if they still matter enough to make you react. They throw a verbal hook, and if you bite, they feel safe again. But if you don't, the silence makes them question everything. They start to see how much of their identity depends on your response. They begin to feel small, exposed, unsteady. That's when they show their real insecurity, not the loud one that blames, but the quiet one that fears being irrelevant. In business or social circles, the same rule applies. The louder a person insists on their importance, the more fragile they usually are. Confident people don't need to prove. They demonstrate through calm. Insecure people try to convince through words, and when your silence meets their insecurity, it acts like a bright light. Every crack becomes visible. They will tell on themselves without realizing it. They will reveal their envy, their need for validation, their fear of being overlooked. You don't need to expose anyone. You only need to stop feeding them. Silence is the truth serum of human behavior. Those who have nothing to hide can handle it. Those who are built on fear will crumble under it. And when they do, you'll see exactly who they are, not through your effort, but through their own unraveling. Most people think silence means defeat. They believe if you don't speak up, you've lost your voice, your stance, or your power. But those who understand human behavior know the truth. Silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. The art of non-engagement is not about avoiding conflict, it's about mastering it from a higher level. When you stay silent, when you refuse to be baited into unnecessary arguments, You begin to control the rhythm of the interaction. You shift the power from noise to presence. You don't fight on their level. You make them fight with their own thoughts. Every word you withhold becomes a form of psychological pressure. People are addicted to reaction because it gives them feedback. When they insult you, provoke you, or test you, they're not looking for truth, they're looking for power. If you react, you've given them proof that they can move you. But when you don't, when you stay calm and quiet, they start to feel that pressure building inside them. They begin to question themselves. Did they go too far? Do you know something they don't? Are you waiting for the right moment to strike? The silence becomes louder than any comeback could ever be. Non-engagement doesn't mean apathy. It means precision. You choose when to speak and when to stay still. You don't waste energy explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You don't correct people who twist your words. You don't argue with those who need to win more than they need to learn. You understand that silence is not weakness, it's selection. You are choosing where your energy goes. The weak react to everything. The powerful react to nothing that doesn't serve them. Watch what happens when you refuse to engage. The ones who tried to provoke you start unraveling. They raise their voice, they repeat themselves, they exaggerate to force a response. But your calm makes their noise look desperate. They thought you would join their chaos, but you stayed still, and now their chaos stands alone. That's when everyone watching begins to notice the difference. The loud one looks emotional. The quiet one looks in control. And perception is power. You don't win by shouting the truth. You win by becoming the calm truth in a room full of noise. In the art of non-engagement, timing is everything. You let others reveal themselves first. You let their emotion expose their motive. And when you finally do speak, your words carry weight because they are rare. People lean in. They listen. They remember. The fewer words you use, the more powerful they become. Silence turns your voice into a weapon, not of destruction, but of precision. The world is full of people trying to prove something. They argue online. They defend themselves to strangers. They explain endlessly to those who have already judged them, but true operators know every reaction costs energy, and energy is currency. Waste it on the wrong people, and you end up broke in spirit. Preserve it and you build power quietly. The art of non-engagement is not about winning arguments. It's about never needing to. You let others talk themselves into defeat, while you remain untouchable, calm, and unreadable. You don't step into their storm. You let them exhaust themselves until they realize they were fighting their own reflection all along. When you go quiet, the world starts talking louder. Not in words, but in behavior. Every pause you hold becomes a small test, and everyone around you reveals who they are through how they handle it. Some will get defensive. Some will talk too much. Some will change the subject. And some will try to make you react just to feel safe again. This is how silence turns into data. When you stop responding emotionally, you begin to see with clarity. You notice patterns, tone, timing, and small signals that emotion usually blinds you to. Your stillness becomes a form of observation, and what you learn in those moments is far more valuable than anything said in the heat of noise. People show their truth in silence. The confident stay calm, they wait with you, comfortable in the pause. The insecure rush to fill it, their words spilling out faster than they can think. They over-explain, they over-justify, they try to control what you might be thinking by talking more. What they don't realize is that the more they speak, the clearer they become. Panic has a way of exposing motive. When someone feels your silence, it forces them to reveal what they were hiding, not because you asked, but because they can't bear not knowing what you think. They start to reveal their fears without meaning to. Every interaction you have is an opportunity to collect data. When someone tries to challenge you and you don't react, you see how much of their confidence depended on your reaction. If they get angry, you learn they needed your weakness to feel strong. If they grow uncomfortable, you learn they rely on attention to feel relevant. If they stay calm, you know they hold real composure. Silence is not passive. It's active listening without words. It's emotional research. The kind of research that tells you who should stand beside you and who should never stand behind you. In life, most people waste their awareness trying to defend themselves instead of studying the situation. They miss what others reveal in their reactions. They think silence means nothing is happening, but silence is when everything becomes visible. The person who jokes nervously, the one who looks away, the one who fills the air with meaningless words, They are telling you what they fear. They are showing you their map without realizing it. Your job is to observe, not respond. The insecure always reveal themselves through panic, not logic. They will twist their story, switch positions and contradict themselves, all in the hope of keeping control of your attention. You don't have to argue with them. Just stay quiet, and they'll do all the work. Every time they try to guess your thoughts, they show you their insecurities. Every time they explain too much, they tell you what they're afraid of losing. When you learn to turn noise into data, you become impossible to manipulate. You see beyond words and into intention. You stop being a player in the game and become the observer of it. And in every social or emotional game, the observer is always the one who wins, because they act last, but they act with full knowledge of everything. When you refuse to react, something subtle but powerful happens. The person who came to provoke you suddenly loses their rhythm. They prepared for a fight, not for stillness. They expected emotion, not calm. When your silence meets their noise, it throws them off balance. Their energy has nowhere to land, so it turns inward. They start to repeat themselves, to explain what they meant, to justify their tone. What began as confidence becomes confusion. What started as control becomes desperation. Without even speaking, you have reversed the frame. You are no longer the one being judged. They are. This is the quiet magic of silence. People who attack others rely on reaction to validate their power. Their strategy only works when you step into their frame, when you accept the role of the defender, the explainer, the one trying to prove something. But when you stay still, when you let their words hang in the air untouched, the entire story shifts. The focus moves from what they said to how they look saying it, and usually it doesn't look good. The loud one starts to seem insecure, the calm one seems strong. The observer becomes the leader, the attacker becomes the performer trapped under their own spotlight. In social dynamics, whoever controls the frame controls the outcome. The frame is the invisible story behind the interaction. It's who appears calm, who appears desperate, who others believe holds power. When someone provokes you, they're trying to drag you into their story, to make you play the part they've written for you. But when you stay silent, you refuse the script. You turn the stage around without saying a word. Now they're the one explaining, defending, performing. You've made them the center of attention in a way they didn't plan. This reversal doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from composure. It's the ability to let people reveal themselves without your help. When you don't engage, the spotlight stays on them longer than they expected. They begin to squirm under it. The audience starts to notice their tone, their exaggerations, their need for reaction. And the longer your silence holds, the smaller they look. It's not cruelty, it's natural psychology. Those who seek control through noise can't survive in stillness. Their energy burns out. Every frame reversal begins with a pause. You don't need to respond immediately. You just need to hold the space long enough for the truth to appear. The one who can wait always wins the moment. Silence turns you from a participant into a mirror, reflecting the other person's insecurity back to them. They expected resistance, but instead they see themselves. That's why silence feels like power. It's not that you've done anything, it's that you've refused to do what they needed. Over time, this becomes instinct. You stop rushing to defend yourself. You stop matching emotion for emotion. You start to see how easily people trap themselves when denied attention. The loudest person in the room begins to look like the weakest, and the calmest becomes the most respected. That is the quiet power of the frame reversal. You didn't argue, you didn't fight. You simply held your peace long enough for their noise to become their own undoing. Your stillness speaks louder than anything you could ever say. A calm face, an unreadable gaze, a slow and steady breath. These things communicate a kind of confidence that words often destroy. When you stay composed in a room full of noise, people feel it. They sense something unshakable in you, something that doesn't need to prove itself. The insecure crumble before that kind of presence because it forces them to face what they lack. They see in you a control they wish they had, and that quiet control unsettles them. It reminds them that power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through stillness. Controlled presence is a language few understand because it's not spoken. It's felt. It's in how you walk into a room without rush, how you listen without reacting, how you hold eye contact just long enough to make someone aware of their own fidgeting. It's how you breathe evenly when others are losing composure. Every small act of calm sends a signal, a message that says, I am not moved. It tells the world that your emotions serve you, not the other way around, and that, more than charm or talk, is what earns respect. People trust calm because it feels safe, but they also fear it because it cannot be controlled. The insecure always try to decode calmness. They look for weakness in your silence. They search for emotion in your eyes. They try to interpret what you're not saying. But your stillness gives them nothing, and that emptiness drives them mad. They start projecting their own fears onto you. They think you're judging them, ignoring them, or planning something. What's really happening is simpler. You've stopped giving them energy, and that silence becomes a mirror they can't escape. They see their own discomfort reflected back at them, and it exposes how dependent they are on external validation. The language of controlled presence isn't about pretending to be emotionless. It's about mastering expression. You can feel anger, but you don't show it carelessly. You can feel frustration, but you let it cool before you act. You can feel insulted, but you understand that reaction only proves the other person's influence over you. Control is not about suppression, it's about timing. You decide when your words or expressions matter, and that choice gives your presence weight. When you finally do speak, people listen because they've already learned that your silence carries meaning. Over time, your calmness becomes reputation. People adjust their tone when they speak to you. They measure their words because they sense that you're not someone easily swayed. You create an invisible field of respect without demanding it. This kind of energy can't be faked. It has to be practiced until it becomes natural. Every time you choose not to react, you build another layer of strength. Every time you choose observation over impulse, your presence grows quieter and stronger at the same time. There is something magnetic about composure. It draws people in because it's rare, and it keeps them cautious because it's unreadable. The world is loud with emotion, so when someone speaks through calm, it feels like power. Your silence becomes the language no one else can translate, and that mystery, that restraint, becomes your greatest influence. There comes a point when the performance can no longer hold. The insecure person who once seemed loud, certain and full of confidence begins to fall apart, not because you attacked them, but because you didn't. They came looking for a stage, hoping your reaction would give them an audience. But when you stayed quiet, when you didn't feed their act with emotion or attention, they were left performing to silence. And silence is deadly to the insecure. It offers no approval, no applause, no validation. It turns every exaggerated word and every forced gesture into something empty. Slowly, their energy starts to crumble under its own weight. Insecurity needs noise to survive. It needs to feel that someone is watching, that someone is reacting, that its chaos matters. When you take that away, when you don't rise to defend yourself or argue back, the insecure person has to face the truth that their behavior was never about you. It was about them. Their fear of being small, unseen, forgotten. Your silence becomes a mirror, and what they see in it is their own reflection, raw and unfiltered. That's when the cracks start to show. The laughter turns nervous, the confidence turns sharp, and the mask begins to slip. The collapse of the performer is not loud, it's slow and humiliating. They overcompensate at first, speaking faster, acting bolder, repeating their point as if saying it again will make it real. They try to drag you into the noise because they can stand being the only one making it. But the more they try, the clearer their desperation becomes. Everyone around begins to see it too. The calm one becomes the strong one. The loud one becomes exposed. Your stillness makes their emotion look exaggerated. Their words sound childish. Their control vanish completely. You did nothing, yet you revealed everything. This is the quiet justice of composure. You didn't have to prove yourself. You didn't have to argue. You didn't even have to correct them. You simply held your calm, and their own insecurity did the work for you. They showed their jealousy, their bitterness, their fear, all while trying to make you look small. But every attempt only made them look weaker. The audience shifted, not to you, but to them. The more they tried to convince, the less believable they became. Silence in these moments isn't just power, it's judgment. It's the unspoken statement that says, I see you clearly, and I am unmoved. That kind of judgment burns deeper than any insult because it cannot be argued with. It doesn't shout, it doesn't accuse, it simply exists. And in that existence, the performer falls apart. They realize too late that your calm was not emptiness, it was awareness. You saw everything they tried to hide and chose not to play along. In the end, every insecure performer destroys themselves chasing your reaction. They confuse attention with strength and end up drowning in their own need to be seen. Meanwhile, you stand still, calm, untouchable, letting silence do what words never could. It exposes the truth, strips away the act, and leaves only what's real. At the highest level, silence no longer feels like a choice you make. It becomes who you are. You reach a point where you no longer have to remind yourself to stay calm, because calmness is your natural state. You walk into a room and people feel it before you speak. The air changes slightly, voices lower, and people become more aware of themselves. They start to measure their words, to question their tone, to adjust their posture. They do it not out of fear, but out of respect for the energy you bring. That is the aura of silent authority, the kind that cannot be faked because it isn't performed, it's lived. True authority doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need loud words, big gestures, or demands for attention. It's built slowly through consistency, restraint, and observation. It's built by being the person who doesn't react when others do, the one who listens longer, speaks less, and means every word when they finally speak. When silence becomes identity, people stop testing you. They stop treating you like someone who can be provoked. Instead, they treat you like someone who already knows more than they say. This kind of presence takes time to form because it comes from mastery over your own emotions. You learn through experience that reacting rarely changes anything, but composure changes everything. You realize that those who rush to speak lose control, while those who wait gain clarity. You stop trying to win arguments and start shaping outcomes through quiet influence. You no longer speak to be heard, you speak to be remembered. And when you stay silent, that silence carries more weight than another person's loudest defense. The aura of silent authority makes people reveal who they are around you. They fill the quiet with their truths, their nervousness, their insecurities. Your stillness acts as a mirror, showing them what they try to hide. They might mistake your quiet for mystery, but it's not mystery, it's mastery. You have learned that real power isn't about control over others, it's about control over yourself. The moment you stop needing to prove, explain, or persuade, you step into a different kind of strength. One that doesn't need validation to exist. People will often talk about confidence as if it's something loud, visible, and obvious. But the strongest confidence is invisible. It's in your tone, your posture, your patience. It's in the way you can sit through chaos without flinching. It's in how you can let others speak without interrupting, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know your silence says enough. This is what turns respect from an effort into a reflex. At this level, silence is no longer a tactic you use to win moments. It's a reflection of who you've become. It's not about strategy anymore. It's about state. You've become the calm in every storm, the eye in every conflict, the steady presence that no noise can shake. You don't demand attention, it gravitates toward you. You don't need to prove your worth, it's already understood. Because silence, when mastered, stops being the absence of sound. It becomes the presence of power. Maybe this video helped you see yourself, or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments, and if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.